Hello and a warm welcome here from Munich to our international Computer Woche and Computer World webcast out to the world about talking about this topic, mobilizing the enterprise. So we have a warm welcome to Bob Emerson. Hello, Bob.
Hi.
Bob is a famous author of several white papers and industry observer since 25 years and more. Is it correct, Bob? More and okay. And he's author of this book, Mobilizing the Enterprise, together with Dr. Henning Ransfeld from T-Systems, who is responsible for marketing strategy at T-Systems International GmbH. Hello, Dr. Ransfeld. And besides him is Nick McGuire, who is the IDC Research Director for the EMEA Enterprise Mobility Research Program. Hello, Nick.
Hello.
Well, right now a hot topic is bring your own device. Yeah, they're coming into the enterprise whether IT likes it or not. Even the board members, C-level guys, are coming in and showing off their iPads, and IT are telling C-level, hey, you know, there are security concerns, but hey, don't tell me the security concern. I'm CEO. It's my iPad. I recall a time when PCs came into the enterprise, IT didn't like it. They wanted to control it. They couldn't control PCs. They controlled the data environment when there were dumb terminals going to IBM mainframes. And they had the power then. They had absolute power. But with the PCs, you started to get democratic situations. You know, a similar situation now. And security is a key issue, of course it is, and we'll be covering it in more detail later on. Okay. Cloud computing is a hot topic right now, and almost inevitably it's overhyped. You can internet articles, it's the greatest thing since sliced bread, or it's a disaster zone and everything. But this is definitely the way enterprises are going with their data. And in this virtual environment, the devices have got a virtual client, they've got a virtual desktop. And instead of the old way of wrapping security around the enterprise and then having the problem that the smartphones were operating outside the enterprise and therefore were getting compromised, now the security issue is on the server. You can wrap security around each individual server. If one server goes down, doesn't matter, because there's plenty of other servers running the same software we're going to take over. So I think that's going to be the nearest thing we're going to get to, not 100%, but to very, very robust security in future.
Henning, from your point of view, you have the close contact with the customers. To what are their biggest concerns? What are their biggest expectations?
Yes, I think there's huge expectations and big concerns, as you mentioned, because in the beginning, if you would have said 2003, what is mobilizing the enterprise, it would have been contract consolidation to reduce mobile roaming charges. Now we're talking about diversification away from the monolithic PC. We're talking about consumerization and trends which happened outside in the consumer world, which are usually impacting what's happening in the business world now. We're talking about a massive potential in terms of new applications and growth on these services. Bringing that all together is a very complex issue and one within a very fast-changing consumer environment. But we in the enterprise market have to get a handle on it and get some control within the enterprise context, bring these devices in, explore the potential and make sure we're using it as productive as we can, otherwise the competitors will. But the road to that is not an easy one.
Generally speaking, we do think that anywhere between sort of 15 and 30% of all mobile applications by 2015 will be web-based applications. So it is a growing trend, as Henning
a huge trend, yes. But nevertheless, it's a big challenge for companies. And you answered where you see the biggest challenges for your own company. May we have the results, please, from the directing. What are your biggest concerns about mobilizing the enterprise? Security issues, 75.6%. This is 3 or 4.
Many organizations need to have if they're needing to move quickly, and oftentimes this is an issue that is mandated from, we talk about the executives, right? 60 days, I want to bring my iPad in for all my workers, make this happen in a secure way, Mr. IT department, and that IT department has less than 60 days to get something in place. Generally speaking, these organizations have to go out and have a dialogue with companies that are quite small and quick and nimble. Because oftentimes, possibly with the exception of T-Systems, but some of the other bigger players in the industry don't necessarily have the right relationships in place, so they go direct to the vendors. But the concern is how long are they going to be around? And so oftentimes the dialogue is with those vendors, can you give me proof of how much financing you have to demonstrate that I can invest in my roadmap for mobility in you as an organization. Mm-hmm. So I think it's tremendously important because we will likely see, particularly in security and device management and mobile application environments, a lot of consolidation over the next 12 to 18 months.
And just the point I was going to make fits in here perfectly. When your CIO comes with the iPad and says, CEO comes, enable me that please within 60 days, the first question you have to get back to him is, okay, are you actually prepared to put it into the iTunes store once to enable the profile and then never again to do your private stuff? Because then after you've done that, enabled the phone functionality, I'm going to run my corporate profile on it. And from that point on, it is not to be docked on the iTunes store again so that your corporate profile stays within the corporate environment. You have to assign some liability, and I think that is one of the parts of the answers. You have to push some liability back to the employee who wants to use it. There has to be some limitation to freedom where there's some security issues and corporate data is concerned. The iOS Cloud 5 might solve these issues in a different way, but with the world we're living in, this is the way it has to be done, and it can only be mutual. The customer can be empowered if he's responsible and if he signs that he's responsible.
Because I was moderating a couple of sessions in the States on device management, and we asked the audience, like, what are you doing about it? And about half the audience was doing something about it, and the other half were doing absolutely nothing about it. And even saying they can't even get their IT management, their C-level management interested in security. And the management said, well, give me an example of a major security breach. And maybe there has been, but in the audience it appeared that there hadn't been a major breach. And the general reaction says, okay, the benefits are so big, let's just do it. Let's roll the device and see. Let's roll the dice and let's see what's happened. Very sort of laissez-faire attitude. But that's the States, which, as Nick said, has got a different culture here to Europe.
I mean, I would just come back to the point you made as well, Bob, in terms of security, and it's not an issue in the US. I mean, I'd be very surprised if credit card companies, utility providers, or anyone who has got a large number of customer data, customer records to protect and to mobilize some interaction on the mobile workforce, where this customer data is at issue, would take a different stance to their multinational counterparts in Europe, which are very security-driven. I agree with you also, Nick, we shouldn't hold the development back because security gives us a lot of reason for not doing things. We could limit liberty and say, well, we want to have the environment encapsulated and secure.
What are your expectations about the benefits of mobilizing the enterprise? So increase of agility, 52%, increase of productivity, 65%, increase of business intelligence and faster decision finding, 37%, more satisfaction for employees' needs, 40%, faster growth of margins and profits, 8%, 8.5%, more satisfaction for customers' needs, 40%.
Totally qualified to speak on the details of that, but I did want to pick up on something that Nick said earlier, is that the days when IT could dictate, you're going to have this and you do this, have long gone. They've absolutely long gone. And again, in the States, people were talking a lot about really the need to bring employees on board right from the very, very beginning, as individuals, as departments and everything. And Nick mentioned education, to educate them. Look, here's what can happen. Here are the dangers, act responsibly. And do you really need this app, or do you really... And just educate and educate and educate, and then most responsible employees will work within those constraints. But if you don't bring them on board, and if you come down on high, it's not going to work. They're just going to circumvent the system.
You really have to look at different scenarios and cases and look at where does it make sense. I mean, Facebook, for instance. Well, yes, you could say it's insecure. We don't know what's happening to the data which is being accessible to Facebook, and if Facebook lies next to the corporate directory on a mobile phone,
we don't know
what happens. But Facebook, on the other hand, also provides some business benefits. Yes, it does in certain situations where our young natives coming into the enterprise are connected quicker, get answers to problems they have, also business problems quicker, like the IT guy who's fixing my PC. If he can close the ticket quicker because he gets an answer through his community, he's more efficient, he's costing the business who's deploying him less money. With VoIP, we tried to build a business case based on TCO, total cost of ownership. Now we've taken all these features, we tweaked them, and we thought, what can we change by, save by moves, add and changes, by some technical feature. Most CIOs agreed that was very hard to do. They implemented voice over IP anyway because they saw huge potential, and then by deploying, they actually found employee satisfaction increased because you could do video conference, there's unified communication, made life easier. Suddenly the secretary of the boss was very happy. She knew when she was stepping off the plane. All these features started to emerge after we tried to calculate them on a TCO, which never really worked. The same is happening on the return on invest for mobile enterprise. I think the business value has to be very clear. And it's the line of business managers who need to be convinced. If they're not convinced, the IT shouldn't try to convince them. But with the example we've seen on CRM, I think there's a clear value for the sales force to be more efficient. I wouldn't try to put this value into numbers and calculate a business case only on those numbers. It has to be really in the holistic context of the whole time saved. And this is just one of many applications which ultimately will render competitive advantage.